In other shocking news, a major anti-gun research center headquartered in that always bastion of freedom, New Jersey, came out and said that exposure to gun violence may hurt dental care. And as a result, people are losing their teeth, suffering chronic stress, and all these other sorts of things. Is this not the most desperate reaching for straws anti-gun study you've ever heard of? I'm going to have some fun with this. Thank you for a viewer. That's guys like you who submitted this. So without further ado, let's get into it. So a recent article from The Trace, part of the vast anti-gun world out there, discusses a study suggesting that basically communities with higher rates of gun violence, the more shootings, experience lower rates of dental care utilization. In other words, people go to the dentist less in places where there's more shootings. Okay. The study then tries to connect that exposure to gun violence may lead to increased stress and trauma, subsequently causing individuals to neglect their oral health. Right. The study was done by the New Jersey Center, which I believe is hosted at Rutgers University in New Jersey. Their recent work has examined how gun violence exposure affects all these different residents, their overall well-being, and so forth. It looks at depression and the use of mental health services. So basically, The Trace argues from the study that, again, exposure to gun violence leads to all sorts of bad things. And of course, where they leave you with is, therefore, we need to have gun control. Now, they don't explicitly say that, but if you can't read between their very, very wide lines here, I don't know what else to say. Okay, so I want to share some statistics that do not come from an anti-gun research center at Rutgers University. The future for the anti-gun research center is up for grabs right now. I know, you're thunderstruck with fear and trembling. Bear with me. According to the FBI's Uniform Crime Reporting Program, violent crime, we're going to take a look primarily at two different areas. Large cities is defined with a population of 250,000 people or more, and then rural counties. Let's compare violent crime. These are crime rates per 100,000 inhabitants. So these are direct apples to apples comparison. Large cities, approximately 700 people per 100,000 inhabitants per year are victims of violent crime. Rural areas, 200. Homicide rates per 100,000 in the United States. This is actually lower. I've seen this as high as 12 in large cities, but we're going to go with this study from the FBI, which is from 2019, which said 10. Rural areas, 2. Motor vehicle thefts, large cities, 400. Rural counties, 100. Burglary rates, large cities, 500 per 100,000 inhabitants. Rural counties, approximately 250. Are you starting to see a connection here between large cities and rural counties? Okay. Please pardon the quick interruption. Be sure to hit that like button. Comment down below what you think is the most interesting, or in this case, maybe the most crazy and absurd part of this story. I've got a fun and different quote of the day coming up at the end, as well as some interesting and powerful statistics. Be sure to stick around for that. Now back to the video. Now, I want to introduce another chess piece. There's something called, and you've heard me talk about this before, the law of crime concentration. The law of crime concentration, I've seen it worded different ways about how it's something, the way I've often seen it is about 1.3% of the streets in the country account for approximately 24% of the crime. It's alternatively been worded as approximately 5% of the addresses or streets within a city or a larger community account for approximately 50% of the crime. So you get the idea. Small area of people are doing an outsized portion of the violence. I know you're shocked. Criminologists, that's not me. I'm an ex-state prosecutor. I'm a criminal defense attorney, but I'm not a criminologist. I don't have a PhD in crime studies. They're the ones that call these hotspots. If you don't believe me, that's okay. I've got some studies linked down below if you want to peruse it in your free time. The bottom line is this: crime tends to cluster in specific microgeographic locations rather than being evenly dispersed across major metropolitan areas, suburban areas, and rural areas. A small portion of places are responsible for most crimes, typically remain hotspots for extended periods of time. So this isn't like a rainstorm that just moves around. These tend to be a gravity well, and anybody with half a brain knows exactly what I'm talking about here. Now, what you can't say is that this is attributable strictly to poverty. because many rural areas actually have a poverty rate that exceeds more than 100% higher than major metropolitan areas. Yes, I realize that that might be shocking to some of you, but actually poverty rates are higher in rural America than they are in urban America, despite the fact that crime rates, at least if we're looking at homicides, are approximately 500% worse in major metropolitan areas like major urban downtown centers as compared to rural areas. What does this all mean? Maybe it means this: bad things happen where bad things happen. And it's hard to have good things, like, for instance, a stable network of dental providers to give good, high-quality dental care where people are getting shot, where car thefts are happening, where violent crimes happening, where burglaries are happening, where robberies are happening. This isn't just a firearm thing. It's not like if we take out the guns, suddenly all the problems just disappear. Because you know what? Despite having a poverty rate that's nearly 100% worse in rural America, and despite having literally a 100 to even 200% higher rate of firearm ownership in rural America, that's code for we have more poverty and way more firearms. We have way less crime. The issue is not the guns. The issue goes much deeper than that. And this is a perverse, shallow attempt to blame the guns, which does nothing to help the victims of this situation, whether we're talking about victims of homicide, violent crime, burglary, or we're talking about poor people who are just trying to get their teeth cleaned and lack good quality access to affordable care. This is not to throw a rock or stones at any of the people or this situation. The only people I am focusing my attention on are the folks who think that somehow Timmy will get better dental care if only we take away guns from people in the country area, because that's effectively what we're talking about when we're talking about gun control. Let me know what you think about this. Hit that like button. Check out the discussion in the comment field below. Sometimes that can get spicy. I suspect this one might as well. Thanks for sticking around to the end. We're going to reward you, as always, with our quote of the day. This one comes from the Byzantine Emperor Justinian, from Justinian's Code. For those of us who majored in medieval European history and theology, we encounter him frequently. He lived from about 527 to 565, and he wrote, quote, "Justice is the constant and perpetual wish to render everyone his due." We are not rendering anyone their due if we're blaming access to dental care on the fact that people in the suburbs or people in rural America have firearms in the Second Amendment. That's absurd. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the video. If you enjoyed this one, please feel free to check out some of our other great content, and we'll see you in the next one.